I've been moving my things out of the house for 4 days, and no one noticed a thing. Neither she nor her mother. Even when I missed the wedding rehearsal, no one asked me. And now, only now, she comes to ask me, "Are you coming to my wedding, Dad?" "No, I won't be there. You invited me to walk you down the aisle, but as soon as your biological father returned, I was completely forgotten. I'm not the father anymore." "Dave, where have you been? Why didn't you show up for my wedding rehearsal? Mom tried to call you 6 times. She's really mad at you." "Really? Where exactly is your mother?" "She just left to take my father, well, my biological father, to his motel." I didn't miss how her eyes darted away from me when she said that. I continued what I was doing before my stepdaughter arrived, which was taking my certificate of appreciation off the hallway wall. "What are you doing, Dave?" "Mom cleaned all these frames about 6 weeks ago." I barely paid attention to her and took the frame certificate to the kitchen. Sandy followed me and watched as I wrapped it in bubble wrap before packing it into an already loaded box. She turned around, the skirt of her dress swirling around her for a moment. This sight took me back to one of the hundreds of dance recitals I attended in her childhood. Only now she wasn't dancing for Daddy. But hurrying back to the living room, I followed her immediately, carrying the packed box. Her mouth opened and closed, like a goldfish. I could see that she had just noticed that all the wall decorations, which were exclusively mine, had disappeared from the walls, along with my souvenirs from the shelves. If she checked, all my clothes from the wardrobe and tools from the garage would also be gone. I went out the front door and was packing the box into the back seat of my car when I felt Sandy follow me and stand watching. She spoke in a quiet voice, a voice that trembled with the shock of what she was seeing, an event she had never even considered before. "Are you leaving us?" "Yes. You finally noticed. I've been moving my things out for 4 days, but neither your mom nor you noticed. That should tell you something, shouldn't it?" "I'm sorry, Dad." "I'm sorry, Dave. I've been a little preoccupied with the wedding. You will come, won't you?" "No, I won't. I thought my absence from the rehearsal tonight would tell you that." "But why, Dad?" "Oh, I'm Dad again. How wonderful, isn't it? You stopped calling me the 3 weeks ago, remember?" Sandy flinched, wrapping her arms around herself, and my old instincts kicked in. "You better go back inside. It's cold out here. I'll call Mom first. You can try, but I suspect her phone will be off." I went back into the house, to the living room, and sat on the couch. I heard Sandy talking on the phone, clearly leaving a voicemail for Mom to call her urgently. Then she plopped into one of the soft chairs. It seemed to swallow her tiny frame. I waited for her to gather her thoughts and start the conversation. From the look on her face, I guess she didn't know where to begin. Finally, "Why won't you come to my wedding?" "You see, you already have the clues." "No, no." From the look of confusion on her face, I could see that the extreme selfishness common to many brides had completely blinded my stepdaughter. This saddened me. I hadn't thought she was capable of such self-centeredness. I mentally shook myself. I was in a hurry to move on. I didn't have time for this, so I took charge of the conversation. "Sandy, I've loved you since I first met you, when you were a chubby 2-year-old with perpetually dirty fingers. I still love you, and, depending on how things go, I may very well love you forever." I paused to determine the best way to continue, then decided to follow the format I used in the letter in my pocket, informing Sandy and her mother that I was leaving them. "When I met your mom, she had just been abandoned by your biological father. We've told you this story often enough. He was a drunk, and after your mom caught him, with another woman, for the second time. She threatened to leave him if he didn't change. Instead, he got up and left you both. He abandoned you." I paused to allow Sandy to say something. She didn't. just stared at me. Shortly after that, your mom lost the house because she couldn't afford the rent. We met, fell in love, got married, and moved into this house with my two sons, Mike and Richard. Since our old house was gone, I needed to help you. Anyway, I digress. I loved your mom and loved you. I loved you as if you were my own daughter, just as I loved my biological children. I never hesitated to take responsibility for raising you. I thought I had lost all that a month ago. Sandy must have heard the tremor in my voice during that last sentence. It brought her back from wherever she had been. You were dead. You were the best father a girl could have. Many of my friends envied me. They couldn't believe it when I told them you were just my stepfather. She stopped, covering her mouth with her hand, slightly shaken by her own words. She realized within about 2 seconds what had happened to me over the past month. I continued my story. I like the guy you chose as your life partner. And he was the proudest person in the world. When you asked me to walk you down the aisle, I paused again to see where this conversation would start to sink into her head. I could clearly see. When most of it finally hit her, she looked away again. Yes, Sandy. You never withdrew the invitation for me to walk you down the aisle, did you? But then, your biological father came back into the picture and, poof, I'm out. He's all yours, in your mother's minds and conversations. I'm yesterday's hero. Did you know that? She was so inattentive that she didn't even realize I never bought the suit for tomorrow as she asked me to. I watched again as Sandy tried to decide which of the issues I raised to address first. I saw the look of horror on her face when she realized she had forgotten that she had asked me, the only father she had known until last month, to walk her on her most important day. I was sure I would hear an apology for this, and that it would prompt her objections. I was wrong. Instead, she confirmed her superficiality by trying to justify it all. Yes, Dave, you met my biological father. He means more to me than my life. You have to understand that. He came back into my life just last month when he found out I was getting married, and it was so wonderful, with his flashiness and how he spoils me, buying me everything I look at twice. He's just, well, what can I say? Both of us. Well, Mom, too, I guess, just assumed he walked me down the aisle. I'm sorry. I forgot that I had already asked you. It's just been like a whirlwind since he came back, which swept you off your feet, didn't it? Yes, that's exactly what he did. Admit it. He just oozes charisma. I was recently telling Mom. She stopped when she realized what she was about to say and to whom she was about to say it. Her face was always like a shallow pond, where even the lightest breeze ruffled the surface, soon replaced by a new gust of wind. Now was no exception. Emotion after emotion flickered across her face as I realized how completely she had ignored me over the last month. I watched as she processed this. I even think I saw the exact moment when she realized her mother had been just as bad. All I had heard in my own house for the previous month was, John did this or John said that. I had tried to show them how angry I was about all of it, but none of it was noticed. They were too far under John's spell. Yes, I saw his charisma too. I could understand why he was such a good salesman. What I didn't do, unlike my wife and stepdaughter, was fall under his influence. They were completely blind when I pointed out his broken promises 3 times. The last straw was 4 days ago when I found out I wouldn't be walking Sandy down the aisle. This revelation came only when I overheard them talking about who would be where in the church. My name wasn't even mentioned. Instead of deciding to show up and hope there was a place for me in the front pew, I started packing my things. I thought I would gently start to prepare Sandy so that future revelations wouldn't shock her. You do realize he's still a lying cheat, don't you? You know he's the same scumbag who abandoned you and your mom 20 years ago, right? He left you both back then, and as soon as he gets what he wants this time, he'll leave you again. Oh, don't be so bitter, Dad. Uh, Dave? Yes? I'm sorry I forgot to tell you that my biological father would be walking me down the aisle. That's my fault, not his. You can be mad at him and call him all sorts of nasty names. What proof do you have that he's still a womanizer? I thought through my answer once more. I feared what the response to my next question would be. I knew my 20-year marriage was dead. Had I also lost my daughter? Well, in for a penny. In for a pound, as they used to say. Where is your mom? I didn't have to hold my breath for long. Sandy's eyes left mine for a long pause. Then they continued to dart back and forth as she asked herself how deep my question went. Had I intentionally linked my question about why I thought her